All right, guys, we are back with episode 11 of the Guestless podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we are taking this conversation virtual today. I am in the house with the award-winning director of the film known as Emunah. He is one of my homies from back at our UNLV days, Michael
Yes,
Yosef.
sir.
How are you
Pleasure
doing?
to be here. Good. Pleasure to be here. Proud of you, by the way.
Thank you.
This
Thank you.
is a huge thing you're doing. You've made many progressing steps since you've started, and it's only been roughly a month, I'd say.
Dude, roughly a month, two episodes per week. We're going to keep pushing.
Keep pushing, man. You got amazing people, some I even know personally, that you've interviewed, and I just feel blessed to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh, dude, you're the perfect fit. You're gonna have to do some educating because I'm very terrible when it comes to the film industry and movie recognition and everything. So you'll have to do some terms. And you also are a little bit of an entrepreneur as well. Also attended UNLV. So let's give all of the audience and the listeners a backstory and some context so we could build on this. So just let everyone know who you are, grew up, how you end up in Vegas, and leading up to your award-winning film.
Sure. Born and raised in LA originally, the Valley, Tarzana, Encino area. Grew up with an Israeli father and South African mother, raised Jewish. Personally, not the most religious, but have grown up more or less faithful and spiritual throughout my life. I've always been into films. I think it really took off. From a very young age, I'd been inspired by filmmaking. It was the artistic medium that I guess resonated with my soul the most from a very young age. But I think where it really got started when I realized like this is something I might want to do for a living was when I was in hospital at a young age. I'd had stomach problems throughout my life, ones that required surgery. And I could be at a hospital for weeks or a month at a time when I was super young. And I kind of just turned to my VHS tapes and my films to connect me to whatever was outside of that hospital room. So I kind of learned about humanity through films before even socializing. So that was kind of, I don't know, I think the beginning of my passionate pursuit of film. Since then, I did study filmmaking at UNLV. I moved to Vegas sophomore year of high school, so like middle of 10th grade. I moved to Vegas. My father had picked up shop from LA due to the economy collapsing at that time, and all the businesses we had in LA had, crashed, like many others. And all that was left at that time was a salon and spa called Ronnie Joseph Salon and Spa, which is my uncle. My dad co-owned that at the time, used whatever we had from that, and opened what we're currently running to this day, which is called IQ Technologies Inc. And the company underneath it is known as IQ Massager. We sell different massager products and TENS units and massage chairs and so on and so forth. When I moved here, this was just beginning. This business was just getting started. I was in high school. I always knew I was, like I said, was going to get into film. Film was my primary passion. So I decided to make film my major once I started at UNLV. And what's funny is I remember for a long time, I was aiming at transferring from UNLV to like a school in New York or LA, like you imagine I'd want to. But it's funny that it didn't work out like I'd hoped, because looking back, I think the film community at UNLV is unmatched. Like everybody's so supportive. Everybody wants to work on each other's projects. It's competitive, but it's not like cutthroat where like, there's bad talk or anything like that. Everybody wants the other to succeed because they know where we're coming from. This city like Vegas is just rising and rising every year. And at that time, there weren't many of us in the film community at UNLV. Everyone knew each other, at least by name. And, since then, I still work with the same crew, the crew that I started shooting my most recent project in, which was in LA. I still used my Vegas crew for that. So leading up to now, I'd shot a film called Emunah, which is award-winning. It won at Los Angeles International Film Festival. It was a segment of that called Indie Short Fest. It won Best Comedy Short. and it was nominated also for Best Director, Best Producer, and Best Acting Duo. But it won for Best Comedy Short, which I'm super proud of. And yeah, that pretty much leads us to where we're at now.
It's quite an accomplishment. So I congratulate you on that, and a lot of accolades. And I know the film industry, like you said, maybe in Vegas it's not as tight and competitive, but out in LA, that's what everyone strives for, because that's what it's built on.
Right.
And
exactly.
So when you filmed Emunah, was that your first film, or did you have prior experience beforehand?
I had, so, you always do projects in school. The thing about studying film at an academic level is everything that you end up studying, you do practically. So it's not all theoretical. It's not all studies from books. Most of the time, it wasn't even handwritten tests. It's, for the most part, all practical. Even your acting class, one of my favorite classes, shout out to Clarence Gilliard, one of my favorite professors ever, if not my number one favorite. I took this acting class at UNLV called Screen Acting for a Living, and everything in that class is practical. You reenact scenes from films. The final project was something called a self-portrait, where you come up very vulnerably in front of the class and have a beginning and middle and end performance type of story about yourself, hence the self-portrait. So that's just one example, but every film class, for the most part, other than an intro to film, is a practical class. So I was making a lot of projects then, to answer your question, but the first film I ever wrote, directed, and produced myself was something called Real Talk. And it's also on my website as well. My first short ever is still on there. And it was about a guy and a girl on a first date, but rather than the dialogue being what they're actually saying to each other, the dialogue was all what was going on in their heads. So it was all verbal. And it was pretty great because I did get to screen it. So my first experience ever screening a movie was my first film, which was cool. I screened it at Spring Flicks at UNLV, which is in front of all the film community. And what was cool about it, since then until now, I realized that it takes people about a minute into the film before it kind of clicks. It is kind of funny and people are starting to get it, but they're like, what is this? And then pretty much at about a minute in, every time people start going, oh, and it's cool. It's cool
especially
to see that.
Yeah, especially with the hookup culture being so popular. It's literally just what you could imagine what a guy wants when he takes a woman out on a fancy dinner. Everyone knows what the common idea is, but that's not what's technically verbalized. But through Michael's film, they're communicating exactly what they're thinking.
Right. And that goes all the way up to when the waiter comes up to the table as well. He's like, I hate my job. You guys want drinks? So it's like everyone's just talking like that. And it's very normalized in the context of the world of the film. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of it, that, it's a really blunt and honest comedy. And it's funny because to this day, I kind of see how that film is still kind of in bits and pieces in how I write in completely other, pieces of material. I can still see my blunt crassness sometimes when I screenwrite. And it's just like, I've been doing this since Real Talk. It's crazy that that's still around. But Emunah was my second film. And Emunah I made roughly 3 years ago now. I'm honestly losing track of time, man. Time feels irrelevant at this point. I'm just moving. But I'd say roughly 3 years ago.
So you made it 3 years ago, 2017, and then you won your award in 2019. Yeah. What happened in those 2 down years? What is the process, I guess, for it to get nominated in that two-year stagnation?
I've said this before in other press interviews as well, that persistence is the key. 100%. There's no question. If you give up, you're not going to do it. If you stop submitting your film and you're like, oh, the first no, that's it, no one will like it, then that's it. You're shooting yourself short or cutting yourself short. You got to just stay persistent. So essentially what happened is we finished the film, we finished the edit. We had 2 amazing screenings at Eclipse Theaters at that time. Leading up to now, there's already been 4 there. So I tried to screen there pretty often. Obviously, right now, that's not the case. But Eclipse Theaters in downtown Vegas, if you guys don't know about it, it's great. It serves food and drinks straight to your seat. It's like got those like lazy boy chairs. So yeah, we had 2 great screenings there. And I did Q&As there, and I realized that I had something special from those. I realized I didn't need to re-edit it. It was ready to go. So once I realized it was ready to go, which, by the way, I want to be clear, it's an incredible feeling and an incredible blessing for a filmmaker, especially when you're just starting like that, to be able to screen on a real big screen and to experience your film in front of a real crowd. It really helps. I don't know if everybody has that opportunity, but if you find a way to do that, it will help you understand your film immensely before you start submitting it to any kind of festival circuit. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, if you notice that famous video of Shia LaBeouf watching all of his films when he did that 24-hour marathon, and he literally starts crying watching it with everyone around it, because he said there's like a surreal feeling of feeling everyone's energy, and then just also watching and seeing your soul, as you were speaking earlier, poured into this.
Absolutely. It's heartbreaking to think that cinema might, going to the theater kind of cinema might be dead for a while. It's heartbreaking for me, to be honest, because that's, that, in my opinion, that's the intended way for the medium to be told. And if, that piece of it gets taken away, there's nothing really separating it from straight television. But there's nothing necessarily wrong with that happening, that hybrid between television and film. It's not like it hasn't happened in gaming yet. Gamings have very much become much more story-based and almost movie-like. So who's to say that that's not the way it's supposed to go? It's just heartbreaking because, maybe I'm just a traditionalist and I love being able to see a film in a theater with people.
You're tied to it. You're tied to it forever.
Yeah, tied to it forever.
It's almost nostalgia at this point.
For sure. But yeah, to answer your question about like the process of getting Emunah into festivals, I submitted it through the festival circuit 1 year. It went through a cycle, but the first year I was shooting just to the big dogs, Sundance, Cannes, just, you name it. I think I just shot a little too high the first time. So I was like, I don't think it's Emunah. I think I just need to, maybe go for more middle lane and see where it takes me. And as soon as I did that, it was starting to get much more buzz. So the first round, it was more so my mistake. The kinds of festivals I was submitting to, I was shooting a little too high. And once I had that second year to go at it, I was like, I'm not necessarily giving up on submitting Emunah. See, that's the beauty. You can keep submitting. There are certain festivals that say you can't submit the same film twice, but not most. A majority let you resubmit. So I just kept submitting, and then eventually it started to catch fire. And it was funny because once it caught fire, things were kind of coming my way. Opportunities were coming my way, whether it was press conferences, Q&As, Voyage LA magazine reached out to me as well. And, I just recently did a virtual screening for Emunah through Movie Karma.
I saw that. Congrats on that. That was really cool.
That was cool, man. Like it made me feel super proud that Emunah has come so far where it's like, it's not just had physical screenings, it's had virtual screenings through quarantine and everything. Like nothing has stopped the train of Emunah once it got started. So I'm just super proud of that film, really.
Yeah. I'm proud of you too, man, especially coming from myself, also a Jewish and cultural background. That's pretty much what the entire film is about. And so can you explain to everyone what the film is?
Yeah, without spoiling too much, because of course I'd love people to go see it for themselves.
Yeah, just the background behind it.
Right. So like you said, it is a Judaic film culturally, but I use Judaism more so as a tool. It's not necessarily about Jewish. It's about faith. For me, growing up, I had a lot of struggle because my father is a very religious Orthodox Jew. I had a lot of struggles growing up through high school and college, thinking if I am even religious. The whole organized religion of it all, I never particularly connected to it. Even in high school, I even thought I was like agnostic. I didn't think I connected at all to anything. But as I got older, I realized that I do have a personal connection with something above, whether you call it God or the universe or whatever. I have my own personal one-on-one connection to it outside of organized religion. So I was thinking to myself, well, that's faith, you know, and what else is faith? You know, when you listen to a beautiful piece of art and, you know, it, or music, and it gives you goosebumps, you know, why does it cause that? What is it doing to you? So to elaborate, basically what happened was I go with this rabbi, and it's loosely based on a true story. I went with a local rabbi, Chabad of Green Valley. I don't know if you know him, Rabbi Mendy. But I go with him during this certain high holiday called Rosh Hashanah, where you're supposed to blow something called the shofar, which is a ram's horn. I don't know if I have one, but which is essentially a ram's horn that you blow. It's a really high blessing on that holiday. It's like for the Jewish New Year. And what that rabbi does is he goes to Jewish patients in hospitals during that holiday, and he blows for them. And he asked me personally to go with him because he didn't want to do the walk alone and didn't want to be alone, and whom I couldn't say no, right? So
it's hard to say no to a rabbi. They give you that Jewish guilt. They
Dude,
stick it into you.
Is so true.
They stick it in hard and they turn. Oh, that's exactly like Rabbi Svi and UNLV. They have right. many ways to get you over to their house for Shabbat or whatever the holiday is.
Hey man, kudos to them for doing so, because you know it. If anything, it benefits us as well when they do that. So you know 100%. We might be stubborn at first, but once we realize we said yes for good reason, we thank them for it, right? But yeah, so ultimately what happened was I saw the impact of what blowing the shofar did for patients, because keep in mind, like I said, when I was young, and not even too young, I've had surgeries throughout my life. I've even had a rabbi, I didn't even know him, you know, just walk in and be like, hey, are you Michael Yosef? I'd like to put on tefillin for you. And, you know, even if I'm not religious, there's some beauty in it, in knowing that someone outside of your immediate family and friends cares enough to show you that they love you and that you're worthy of being, you know, outside, not just in the hospital, and they're willing to help you feel like you're there. And that's a huge blessing, I think, to give to people. And so what's funny about that is, so I think that's what made Emunah great to turn into a comedy and not just like a straight drama about that, because it was ironically also funny, because most people kind of felt uncomfortable. They weren't that religious. You know, they hadn't gone to temple in years or whatever, just because they're Jewish. And they didn't know how to feel when the rabbi walked in at first. But once he started blowing, I would say 99%, if not 100% of them looked at peace. And this is completely unbiased. This is just me standing there watching, seeing someone that's cringing in pain and then starts blowing. And then all of a sudden they just look calm. And I was like, wow, that's so powerful. That has to come from a place of faith, regardless of if that's Jewish or not, organized religion or not. Faith brought them that peace. And I thought, wow, isn't that the perfect example of showing people in my generation who are very kind of against organized religion that faith isn't so bad. Maybe you have something against certain ideologies, but faith can only bring good to your life. And I realized that many times, but that was one of the most like physical ways of explaining it. And I was like, oh, this is the perfect way to tell this message to people of my generation. So that's pretty much how I got started.
Wow, that's very well put. I felt like I was watching the movie all over again.
But, hell yeah.
Touching on faith, it is true that organized religion is somewhat diminishing. And I think that's why, especially I was a rush chair for a Jewish fraternity, for those that don't know. And when I was rushing a lot of Jewish kids in college, the majority of the people that I rushed weren't really super religious. They're just more in it for the culture. And even talking and explaining that to rabbis, they always say that it's a Jew-ish for a reason. That's the joke. But it's about having faith and having belief and surrounding yourself with the right-minded people who are going to assist you and encourage you, even if maybe they don't have that exact same belief as you, but they're still going to propel you forward. And as we know, faith and success, it's a lot more mental than it is physical than anything. And social support 100%. is something that's very needed, and especially in today's world with social media running rampant, and you only see the positives of what people's lives really are, and you kind of reflect that on yourself. And And so you lose faith sometimes within yourself or society.
100%. And there's nothing wrong with that battle. You know, that's a mental game daily. You know, nobody's waking up 100% every day. But when you're aware enough to know, hey, you know, I didn't wake up with, you know, oh no, I didn't wake up in a good mood, you know, and I don't know why, and I don't know where it came from. I think awareness is the first step. You're like, okay, I'm aware that I feel like crap right now, and I don't necessarily know why, but I'm also aware that I have that choice to not feel that way. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to make that choice, but I do know in my being I have that choice. I don't have to feel like this. And for me, it's usually a choice of faith and a choice of, it's almost like the least control I have, the more happy I am. It's weird. It's like of course you still make choices and you're like, oh, I want to make a plan, and oh, I want to have a goal. All those things are fine, but at the end of the day, just know deep down it's not in your control. You can only do your very best, and to just not be so hard on yourself. And it's easy for me to say because I'm my own worst critic, and I beat myself up all the time and I overthink about everything. But I know what helps me get by is 9 times out of 10 faith. It's believing that something above me, whether it's a God or the universe or the multiverse or whatever you want to believe, you can be scientific. I love many things about science. I love string theory. I love all that stuff and still have faith, So if anything, you need faith to believe that stuff. So usually when I believe something above me ultimately is in control and I'm just riding this wave the best I can, it's funny. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It makes me more comfortable.
Yeah. It's all about finding support, and it's about building a strong base around you. Like you were saying, when you're trying to find a home for Emunah to win an award at a festival, you kept going too high on the pedestal, and that was leaving you with a weak base. So you kept just immediately falling down. Then once you lowered it and started talking to some more, I would say, level-headed film festivals, you were able to find success, and you started building your base around there, started talking to local talent, local interviewers, and now your base is becoming stronger. You've built more faith, and now you're making your trend uphill.
Hell yeah. And I love what's happened with Emunah. When I shot too high, it wasn't like that's what I expected of it. It was just the festivals I knew at the time. It's the first time I was submitting. So I was like, what festivals I know? I know Sundance, I know this, so once I did a little bit more research and, started finding more and more avenues for Emunah, I realized that the people that accepted Emunah for what it was were the best fit, because those were the people that understood my underlying message. And for me, that's more important than getting the biggest festival. It's being able to, okay, I won an award, but it wasn't just about winning an award. I won an award because I was able to convey my message properly. And it resonated enough where it wasn't just limited to Judaism. Any kind of person watched it and understood what I was saying. And that for me was the goal. And once I reached that, everything else was extra.
It's beautifully well put. Can you give me kind of a description on the awards specifically that you won from this? Because there's a few different festivals that you'd mentioned, and like I said, I'm not really knowledgeable in the film industry. So can you just kind of explain like what they are?
Right. It was a semi-finalist at a few. I don't want to mess this up. I know it was a semi-finalist at Jellyfest, which is a Los Angeles festival, and Hollywood Screenings, something like that. Mm-hmm. Hollywood Screenings Fest. But it officially won at what was called Indie Short Fest, which was basically a segment of the Los Angeles International Film Festival, which is a pretty nice one. It's like
that's a large one.
People are it's a pretty good one. Yeah, pretty large one. But the Indie Short Fest is basically the segment of it that's directed just for short films. Okay. So it's like, that's pretty much what it is. It was a segment of Los Angeles International Film Festival, and it was called Indie Short Fest, and it won Best Comedy Short. And once it won that, there was this back and forth between going to LA for a Q&A and a screening. And at that point, I had only screened in Vegas. Not saying that was bad. I loved screening in Vegas, but there's a certain prestige that comes with being able to screen in LA. So I was definitely looking forward to that. At that point, I knew I had won, but I didn't know if I was going to get a screening, because not necessarily everybody gets a screening. And then I got the call like 2 weeks before my screening saying, yep, not only are you getting the screening, but your film will be the first to screen. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And so I ended up getting a screening at Raleigh Studios. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Raleigh Studios out in Hollywood. And it was awesome, man. It was a real like production studio. I'm walking around, sets and stuff. And then all of a sudden there's this like back corridor and there's this like little theater, super intimate. And there was other filmmakers there. And yeah, it was a really nice experience, humbling experience. And yeah, just super proud that it had come that far. And then, like I said, since then, even another virtual screening about roughly a week or two ago. So like, it just keeps like you said, since I made that choice of like exploring more options and not shooting too high, everything has just kind of started flowing.
Yeah, it's all about the base.
All about the base.
And so, why continue to film short films? You said your first one was a short film. Obviously, your award winner is a short film, and the one that you were working on before you moved here, or before you had to come back because of COVID, was also a short film. Is there some sort of, I wouldn't say nostalgia, maybe nostalgia because that's the winner, or you find some sort of like emotional connection to a short film that you're able to portray your message?
So number one is affordability. When you're an independent filmmaker and you don't have a studio backing you and you don't have a manager backing you and all these things, and you're entirely self-produced, think about what you have in your pocket and what you can afford. So I'm like, okay, what story? Let's say I write a short story and then I go back to it and I'm like, can I actually afford making this? Then I got to start stripping at it from a director's point of view. So it starts with the screenplay. Then you look at that screenplay and you're like, hey, can I actually afford to make this? So 9 times out of 10, actually 100% of the time up until this point, I can only afford making short films. I wish I could afford a feature. And obviously that's one of my ultimate goals in life, is to make a feature film. But I also think it's a blessing in disguise that I've kind of mastered. I don't want to say fully mastered, but I've started to master the craft of short-based storytelling or short-form storytelling, because look at the world we're living in. Everyone's attention spans are kind of shorter and screens are getting smaller. And, it's kind of like, this is the first time in film history where short films are actually getting distribution. Emunah did get distribution. It got distribution through Movie Karma, which was that app I was telling you about, which is primarily charity-based. You can fund to different charities and support filmmakers, independent filmmakers. So it got distribution. In any other day and age, I don't think short films are getting distribution. So, and look at what's coming to Netflix too. There was that, what was it called? The Love Robots. What was it?
Love Robots Hearts or something like that.
Yeah,
I know which one you're talking about.
The David Fincher produced animated short stories. It was just, and it was anthologies. It was just one short story, and it was a hit. So, and it's not the only one. There's many of these coming. And so I think it's a blessing in disguise that although this was mainly a choice due to funding and just being able to afford it, but it's also allowed me to master a form of storytelling that's kind of a hit right now. It's kind of working. Basically what I'm working on now, and what was in production before COVID stopped it, was this series idea that I might turn into a web series. I would love for it to get picked up one day, maybe. The overall title of the series was called Dark Tales, and the episode I was working on, which was essentially a pilot episode, was called Midnight Supper. And it was basically my first take on horror, but because I always write comedically, it obviously ended up becoming a dark comedy horror. And I'm really happy with the dailies I've seen and what we've gotten done thus far. We shot all the exteriors on the UCLA campus, and it was hard to do, and we busted ass, and everyone on my crew busted ass, and it was for 2 overnighters back to back. It was crazy. but we got a lot done, and we got all our exteriors done for that film. So it's just basically the interiors I need to shoot. And I was ready. I was already getting like a restaurant possibly in LA to shoot in, you know, a house possibly to shoot in. And then COVID came, and then everything went on pause. Right now, production is still on pause, but I still, you know, want to hop on that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think even with with COVID happening, the short film industry, I could see just from through this conversation, could see an explosion, because short, like you're saying, attention spans are really bad right now, and consumable content is recommended to be under 10 minutes. And you have so many different platforms that can host that, where it's like YouTube, even Instagram TV has their own like side platform for it, Facebook, all
Facebook
these,
Watch.
and you see all these big movies that had filmed their hour-and-a-half length feature, they're all put on pause because all of the movie theaters are closed. And I was reading too that some of them are looking to try to do the buy and rent, or buy and screen on some of these different platforms, whether it's Netflix or
straight to streaming. Yeah, everything straight is changing. Same with, you know, the business that I'm helping run. Things are switching to e-commerce. Everything's switching to digital and stream based, because everyone's stuck at home, man. And people still want their content, and people still want their goods. And I understand that. It's just sad because, like I said, it's heartbreaking because I'm a traditionalist. I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, not only were plenty of people going to the movie theaters every weekend, but way more than now. But also, it was a time with a lot of risk. All the films coming out then were big risk-taking films, whether it was like a Fight Club or a Pulp Fiction. You know, they were different. They were taking risks. The gamble was massive, and they did it for the craft. And times have changed a lot since then. Movies are much more expensive. You know, a film that's a hit is normally a massive budget, you know, with big hitting actors. You know where I'm going with this. All the Marvel films, no offense, but that's what it is. You know, all of our Marvel films, the Fast and Furious, that's what sells at the cinema nowadays. Back when I grew up, that's not how it was. The riskier the film, the better. American Beauty, Gladiator, you know, the hits, man. You know, those were early 2000s, but still. You know, just 94, the year I was born, it was Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction. What am I missing? Already like 3 huge classics. Just
yeah, Forrest Gump's my favorite movie of all time by far. I think
it teeters at number 1 for me all the time too. Just like nostalgia, man, and it taught me a lot about history too when I was growing up. You know,
yeah, I think the computer animations now you see in a lot of these movies, and more specifically, I'm talking about like Star Wars, and you know, it kind of like turns me personally away from it, just because it doesn't seem as realistic.
Dude, do you ever see the original Jurassic Park? When was the last time you've seen the like OG Jurassic Park?
I haven't watched it in a while, but
to this day it still stands, and it was mainly animatronic, hardly any CGI in that film. I don't know, man. You know, it's actually, what's funny is CGI is very expensive. I think it's just more so, you know, it's easier to do rather than it's cheaper. You know, you just hire one guy to do it all post-production. You know, here you go, rather than have to deal with an animatronic T-Rex that breaks down every 5 hours. You know, it's due to convenience. I think it's also due to just change in who runs those studios. I think back in the day, it was still like risk-taking, renegade, you know, art-driven people. I think now it's primarily businessmen. And no offense to businessmen, I am one. So I understand that you need to still make money at the end of the day. But when you're dealing with an industry that's 100% art driven, you need to have the craft at the base. Like you said, you have to build a base from somewhere. And if there's no art and there's no message, then of course, inevitably, this is what's going to happen. It's going to go straight to streaming. It's going to hybrid with TV. Eventually, who's to say that eventually, like, people will be fine with just watching movies on their phone, you know, one day. And you know, for me, it terrifies me. But at the same time, you know, I want to adapt. One of my favorite filmmakers is Martin Scorsese, and he's a good example of a filmmaker that adapts with the times. You know, just recently he released Irishman through streaming, through Netflix.
Oh, on Netflix, yeah, I like that. It was long too, 3.5 hours.
It's long, and it's a hard movie to watch in one sitting at home. it took me like a solid week to get through that film. And that's not how I like to watch movies, man. I like to like sit, turn off my phone, and just get in on it. But when you're watching a 3.5 movie from home, 3.5 hour movie from home, you're gonna get distracted, whether you're hungry or somebody comes in, or you know how it goes. So again, it concerns me with how the medium is intended to be watched. I know that was always an option. You could always watch from home. That's fine. I was always okay with that. But when the intended medium is taken away from the filmmaker, it's sad. I hope it's not indefinite.
Yeah, I think it's just like back in the day, bringing nostalgia back, when you go to Blockbuster and you go rent a movie with your family, it's a whole experience. You go get the candy, go rent the movie. It takes 20 minutes to find the movie, not just
even if you didn't like the movie at home, you guys had a blast finding one.
It was about the bonding quality with people than rather just wasting time on Netflix. Like people today, that's why I don't really watch TV. My personal rule is I don't turn on TV or streaming until nighttime, because I feel like once I turn on streaming, I kind of just lose motivation for the rest of the day, and it just becomes like a wormhole. And like you're saying, that's kind of where it's
with gaming.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's trending too. And the conversation you were saying before about the businessmen running the movie industry, the one movie series that I thought of while you were talking about that was Fast and Furious.
Dude, like, it's absurd. No offense to people who like the franchise. Like, it's a fun film. Go have fun. Like, that's what it's intended for. But, when you see Vin Diesel flying across a highway, jumping to catch someone in there, falling onto a car, and like no scratches, it's like, how much of that are you really enjoying? Or are you just using that to zone out? And for me, that's not the kind of art I want to personally produce. And yeah, it upsets me. But like I said, there are filmmakers who can adapt. Tarantino's still around and he's still shooting on film. Scorsese is still around and he's adapting with the times all the time. And that dude's ancient, man. That dude is like a great grandpa now, for all I know, and he's still killing it making films. And he's a great example because when things were kind of transitioning to horror, he did Shutter Island. When things were kind of transitioning to 3D, he did something called Hugo, which was a kid's film. I don't know if you ever saw it. Mm-hmm. He when things are transitioning to streaming, he made Irishman. So, I can be a traditionalist all I want, but the filmmakers I look up to did adapt with the times. And, I don't really want to shoot myself in the foot and be like, screw it, just because, I don't like where things are going, I'm not going to produce my art anymore. So I'm struggling with that right now, to be honest, but I don't see myself stopping. It's something I've loved. It's my passion. It's something I love to do, and I don't really see it stopping. And I would hop on the production of Dark Tales right now if I could, but I understand there's safety concerns, and nothing's really ready to start production yet, even on an independent level. So I'm being patient, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready to keep making movies.
Yeah, you speak the entrepreneurial spirit, which is something that I always pitch on here. Is like, no matter, like, founders and entrepreneurs, we all have this similar mindset that will overcome any boundary obstacle, no matter if we have to go over it, around it, under it, through it, whatever the case is. And it sounds like one of the obstacles it sounds like you're facing is kind of like you don't want to go with the times, and it's almost like an ego hit, right? Like you don't
a bit.
Like, you have the nostalgia a little bit, but and you're aware that you're going to have to commit to wherever the future is going. And so that brings me to a question of, with all these different mediums that are going out where you can stream, like Netflix, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, is there a negative connotation to releasing, let's say, short films on YouTube versus Instagram versus Netflix or anything?
YouTube always seemed to me to be a medium not for cinema, not intended for films. What are the hits on YouTube? Like a cat video or like something like that. Not saying that's bad, it has its own place, but I never really saw it as an artistic avenue. But I do see that changing. I know YouTube Red is a thing where you can, I haven't signed up for it, but I know Cobra Kai, which was like kind of like a sequel to, what is it called? I'm blanking. Karate Kid. They have something like that on YouTube Red. So I know that that's starting to change. I personally don't have a YouTube channel for my short films. I post my short films on Vimeo. It feels just a little bit more in tune for filmmakers, especially independent people. And you can even get something that's called a staff pick where they feature your film and stuff like that. They might also have a festival related to Vimeo. I'm not entirely sure, but that's where I choose. I don't know if there's necessarily a negative connotation with going anywhere else. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to YouTube way or the Facebook way or an Instagram way. You know, I might even start going on Instagram. I already have a Michael Yosef production page on Instagram. So, you know, I right now, basically what I'm doing, but again, we're still building our bases. But right now, what I have is a website that I run myself. And, you know, all my films are always going to be posted there. Anyone can always watch my films on my website. And a Vimeo account that hosts those links. Otherwise, I'm not really doing any other avenue on my own. But like I said, Emunah did get distribution through that new app called Movie Karma. So if something reaches out to me like that, I'm pretty much, you know, 100% down. Especially that one was for a good cause. Netflix, I've heard some horror stories. I don't know what's true. I don't have any connections in Netflix as of right now. But I've heard some horror stories where, you know, yeah, you can make money through getting streamed on Netflix, but they have so much control where they don't even necessarily show you the analytics. So you don't even necessarily know how many views you're getting. So you're just kind of maybe getting a paycheck, but you don't know if it's legit. You know, they don't show you.
Yeah, it
So
goes
that's
back.
what I've
Goes back to like the businessman running everything,
Right.
and you want more of the art form.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily, like, of course, if I had the opportunity, I'd jump on it, but I don't know if that's the ultimate dream. I don't know if the ultimate dream is to have my film streamed on Netflix. I'd want more control than that. You know,
it makes sense being an artist. You know, you want to always be in control of where your art's going, because you want to be able to see and hear people's reactions towards
absolutely.
it, because
You don't
that's
want
the
to
meaning in it.
throw your film away. You know, it throws its value away as well, diminishes its value as well. And then now it's getting streamed and you don't know how many views it's getting, and you know, you kind of just feel screwed over. And you know, that's the thing about the industry too, is it's filled with people like that leech off of, you know, people who actually know the craft and do their best and really care. There's a lot of leeches that come and they're like, oh, you're actually someone passionate, let's see if we can grab onto you and make some money off of you, because they don't have necessarily the same passion in the craft, but they like the business and they like the glamour and they like the attention. So yeah, you know, there's a really negative side to the film industry that everyone knows. It's very much on the surface. But there's also, you know, people like me that actually care. And there's enough people like me too. You know, enough of us still trying, enough of us still independently making our films, independently screenwriting, producing, even actors, you know, sacrificing it all to move to LA or whatever. A few of my friends had just moved to LA when this happened, sacrificing it all to work on sets and be character actors and be extras, people who really care about the craft. And I think there's enough of us for there to still be an art, but I just hope it doesn't eventually die, because it has been like more and more and more as the years go on. There's been less and less and less of that, at least in the US. Foreign films are incredible, but at least in the US, that keeps happening.
Yeah, you see, especially on Netflix, you see a lot more foreign films appearing on there. But
man, they're incredible. Yeah, really. You know, I know that Parasite just won, and it was a huge hit. But before Parasite, Korean cinema was arguably one of the best to do it for like the last 10 years or so. One of my favorite films of all time, if you haven't seen it, if your viewers haven't seen it, is called Old Boy. It's a Chan-wook Park film. I haven't
seen it.
It's an incredibly masterful film. It's very bizarre, and it's very, you know, that's the thing about Koreans, you know, they're ultra violent, they're weird, but with that weirdness and with that ultra violence comes this really incredible underlining poetic, you know, theme that they all kind of do. You know, Parasite does it, and it's a Korean thing that Americans can't really emulate. Like, if we're weird, we're weird. there's no way we can really balance the weird with the poetry. They have this nice little balance of like, we're ultra violent, we're weird, but we're also very poetic, and it's amazing. But they're not the only ones. You know, there's a lot of great foreign films. If you're open-minded, that's what I'm happy about Parasite. You know, it made people more open-minded to foreign cinema, because they are killing it. I'd say arguably more than the U.S. in the last recent years.
That's good. Somebody else needs to at least lead the charge, because I know American movies have always led the charge since, what is it, the 60s, since the film industry, but you don't really see anything else appearing. It almost makes you feel kind of isolated from the world, and it kind of gives America that stigma that, you know, everything's a reality TV show, because you don't see anything outside of America really that's popular.
Right. But what's funny is it is still, you know, we're still the entertainment capital of the world, regardless, for anything, whether, you know, you're in the club industry, whether it's the clubs or any form of entertainment, the U.S. is the capital. For sure. People emulate the US, even our reality shows. If you go to any other country, another country has a Big Brother, another country has Survivor, another country has their own version of American Idol. So it's, you know, other countries definitely still view us as the entertainment capital, but I do think we've stripped away a lot of what made us that. I think we are still that, but I think the places that took influence from us sometimes can do it better. It's almost like when the student learns from the teacher, you know. But having said that, that doesn't mean all our mediums are so bad. I think gaming has been incredible. I brought it up a few times. I think gaming is one of those artistic mediums that every year just keeps becoming more and more impressive. Even storytelling wise, like it seems like that industry really has something good going.
It's really
I would love to write for a game.
Really blowing up, especially with esports. You see now now that the betting industry is getting on it, that's pretty much legitimatizing it as an official sport.
It's an official sport. It's an official art form too. Did you ever play Last of Us? You heard of it though, right? Yeah,
I used to be a big gamer when I was younger, and then once I got into college, I kind of just got swept up into the like party and college fraternity scene, and actually sold my Xbox One X a few days ago to just like fully commit to the podcast. But
there's no questioning that it makes you a little bit you know, unproductive. But there's a beauty in how far games have come. Whether you said in esports, but I'm even referencing more so storytelling. Games have kind of become this perfect hybrid of like movie and game now, whether it's Last of Us or the most recent God of War or so many Uncharted games. There's this really nice blend. Also Senua's Sacrifice.
Okay.
Is a really good one if you haven't heard of that. But there's this really nice blend of like really solid writing and storytelling and character development, as well as you being there and you playing that person. So it adds another level because you're that person when you're playing. And then obviously when it changes into a cinematic, in the past, the cinematics were like, whatever, you know, like sometimes you'd even skip them, but now there's no skipping them. You're hooked to the story. Last of Us is a really good example, and Last of Us 2 should be coming out this year at any point, but keeps getting postponed. But Last of Us is a really good example because it's arguably one of the best written storytelling games I've ever played. And it has one of these endings that till now I still sometimes think about, just a super like, kind of ending, you know, that just kind of like hits your heart and you're like, oh shit, like, oh my God, all that for this. And like, man, I think that's super powerful that games can do that, because in the past, only films could do that for me. And then obviously books for me are kind of just this whole different medium, also great, but you know, are they really blending with the times as well as any other medium? Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I didn't even think of that. Is that since the film industry is kind of becoming more business-like, a lot of film producers are trying to instill their art into a different medium, and the gaming entertainment is just perfect for it.
Yeah, gaming's getting just better every year. It's something I'd love to maybe write in or be a part of it, you know, help write a game at some point. Who knows? I'm not really connected into that industry right now, but I think it's really cool what they're doing and the levels of detail they're getting into. The new consoles are coming. I've seen some game engine demos. It's crazy, man. It's really insane how much they can progress year by year. But it's also it's bittersweet, because on one hand, I'm really happy for it on the gaming side, but I'm a little bit nervous about it on the filmmaking side, which is where I'm at right now. Because like I said, I don't know what's going to happen to cinemas and movie theaters. I'm not necessarily sure if what my ultimate goal is to be a streaming based filmmaker, although that's clearly where the direction these things are going. So I have an internal conflict there, but also that hybrid of television and film. What's going to happen? You know, when films are straight to television, and obviously television is already straight to television, what's differentiating the two? And for me, if I'm chilling at home, I'm kind of a little bit more interested in a television show. You know, there I can turn off and on every episode. Once it's done, it's done. I can go back to it next week. A film, I can't really watch that way. I need to kind of sit and watch it in one sitting. I can't kind of break it apart like that, which is why, like I said, I had an issue with Irishman. Although I really liked the film, I had an issue trying to finish it in one sitting. I couldn't at home. It was really hard.
And if you think about it too, with Netflix, when they just release the entire series at one time, and a lot of these people do the binge culture,
Right,
where you watch all 8 episodes at one time, it is pretty much like a elongated movie in that sense.
It is, but the thing that makes it good, the thing that causes people to binge, right, is how they end every episode with a hook. So it's like, you know, I don't want to spoil any show, but you know what I mean. Like, you know, there's a cliffhanger at the end of the episode, and then it hooks you in, and then you're like, oh, now I have to see the next episode. With films, it's different. Like, the beats are different. The structure of a film is different than the structure of an episodic TV show. So with a film, not necessarily every 15 minutes something hooks you. You got to be a little bit more patient. Where like maybe an hour in, there's a pivot point where it's like the character learns something. Then you start realizing, oh, this is the direction the film's going. And that isn't necessarily where the film ends, but there's not as many like blatant points of like, oh, this is going to hook you, this is going to hook you, this is going to hook you, like a show does. So I don't necessarily know if straight to television is the right platform for films. Like I said, I think cinema, without a question, like going to the theater without a question, is the perfect medium for a film. It's the way it should be, because you have your phone off, you're not allowed to use it.
And so,
if you use it, you get kicked out. So you have no choice but to sit on your ass and be distracted, and to just get engrossed by whatever the filmmaker was intending you to be engrossed by. Whereas, like I said, at home, nothing's necessarily stopping you from just picking up your phone or eating something or pausing it or never watching it again. You know.
Yeah, it sounds like they could kind of just get diluted in a sense, and
I'm worried about that.
Yeah, dilution could kill anything, not just in the film industry. I'm sure it's rampant in the film industry. It's rampant in the financial industry. Anything.
Right.
And so as we were talking of all these different mediums, creative outlets, have you produced through any other different creative outlets outside of your 3 short films? Well, 2.5. Until the 3rd one's done. Right,
until the 3rd one's done. Please God, soon. Not really. You know, I focus on filmmaking. I studied that, and you know, that's pretty much what I learned and what I keep owning my craft in. I think it all started for me with acting, to be honest. Although now acting isn't necessarily my intended. You know, that's not my favorite thing to do anymore, but it all started with acting, because when you're a kid, that's what you see. You don't necessarily see what goes on behind that. So I kind of gravitated towards acting in the beginning, and even in college, acting was my favorite class and taught me the most. So for me, acting was a nice medium as well, and I do act still from time to time. I'm on a good friend of mine, fellow filmmaker from UNLV, his name is Hunter Hopewell. I play a character in that film, and that's currently getting edited, and it's a feature film. It's called Shellfish. He just finished currently editing his first feature. So I acted in that, and it was a cool experience. I don't necessarily limit myself from continuing acting, but like I said, that's not where I put 100% of myself in. I think more than anything now, I screenwrite. That's where I spend most of my time artistically, is screenwriting. It's really different from novelistic writing. You have to follow really specific rules and structures because you are showing your story, you're not telling your story, which is weird because obviously you read it. So how do you do that? How do you show with words? So that's the craft of screenwriting. And that's something I'm still learning as I continually, screenwrite. And I do have a feature-length screenplay finished. Obviously, always going through rewrites. Writing is rewriting, but super proud of that. If I ever get to make it, I'd love to make it. That one's called Mess Around Gang. I still write shorts, Dark Tales, Midnight Supper coming soon, halfway through production. I have plenty episodes in mind for that as well. There was this animation idea I had, which was also something I might want to turn into a series. It's called a Cyborg. It's a really interesting concept, and it works with the times right now too, so it might be cool to talk about it, although I'm not really doing much with it right now. But it's a screenplay I wrote years ago, and it's an animation idea, but I'm not an animator, so I'd need a collaborator with me on that. But I've looked on and off, not necessarily 100% of my effort, but I've looked, in the bubble of my filmmakers that I know, fellow filmmakers I know, for fellow animators that might be interested in hopping on board with me on that. But Cyborg was one of my favorite ideas I've written. It's about a future, a dystopian future, where humanity is non-existent or seemingly non-existent, and everything that exists on the planet is one form or another of AI, where it's, basically we have uploaded our consciousness onto like cyborg avatar bodies, and now it's just like 500 years into the future. But what happens? So in that script, I have this like factory worker still doing the mundane day-to-day stuff we'd be doing now, but rather than for currency, it's for the ultimate goal of having heaven on earth. So it's funny because the irony is, if it hasn't happened yet, it doesn't look like it's necessarily coming for them. So the plot for that, I can spoil a little bit. Basically, the pivot point halfway through, my main character, who's a cyborg, meets this underground hidden militia of humans that have been hiding underground for all those years, trying to keep the human condition alive, trying to keep life alive, didn't believe in the idea of, eternal life. So the whole plot of that is the value of life in itself. Even the fact that it's not forever, the physical life, it's okay to end. It's basically the plot is about being comfortable with the fact that your life has an end date. And I'm really proud of that script. So I want to make that too.
I'm a huge fan of futurism and sci-fi, so I absolutely love that. And I've actually been saying for a long time since high school that I'm trying to live forever. So and I'm a really big fan of Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, where he's basically trying to do that. But
I'm a huge fan of him in general.
And I
love him.
His fear is also AI takeover. So you're almost writing a script for his fear that he preaches all the time.
And the irony with him is it's his biggest fear. It's his goal and his biggest fear. So it's like, if you can't beat him, join him kind of thing. Where it's like, it's going to happen anyway. So he might as well be part of hopefully it getting regulated correctly and it doesn't go out of control. But yeah, I remember I heard that in one of my favorite podcasts was the first. Elon Musk.
He just came on. He just went recently on the show again.
I
think it was more of a PR stunt from his tweet about how this Tesla stock was too high. But
he had some interesting things to say. How we're morphing into cyborgs ourselves. I thought that was interesting. How we might reach a point where communication is telepathic. Thought that was interesting. But yeah, I definitely think the first episode with him was a little bit more interesting. Obviously, we know the whole thing that happened with him smoking weed.
Yeah, I remember watching that live, and I was like, "Oh, this is really happening right now."
It was awesome. I thought Joe Rogan killed that interview. He was kind of feeding him whiskey.
He egged him into it.
Yeah, it was very nonchalant. Like, hey, you want this like really, really good whiskey? And then Elon's just like, yeah, sure. But Elon, what's cool about Elon for me is I feel like we're ignorant, or a majority of us are ignorant to the fact that he really is kind of like the Einstein of our generation.
Highly
There's no one
intelligent.
doing, no one doing what he's doing. No one's innovating like he's innovating. No one's creating like he's creating, inventing like he's inventing. And he makes that very apparent in podcasts too. He's like, I wish there were more people inventing things and creating things rather than just jumping into finance or jumping into being lawyers. He said that in the most recent podcast. He's like, I wish more smart people, rather than going straight to finance because it's easy, paycheck, to just say, hey, maybe I can create something and, use my brain for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah,
I really like him.
Yeah, I enjoy him a lot. There's actually a guy named Peter Thiel who's he's an investor. He owns Peter Thiel Capital, and his friend Eric Weinstein is also popular, also always on Joe Rogan's show. But they talk all the time about how society's in this like great stagnation since the 70s, because that's when everyone that was in theoretical physics basically stopped, because a lot of the inventions nowadays and how society propels forward is through theoretical physics, and how everyone basically stopped pursuing that discipline to get into finance and all these other like money making. And how like Peter Thiel, he wrote a book that I read. It's called 0 to 1, which is basically creating societal changes in technology. Like, for example, 0 to 1 would be like the automobile or the computer, or like things that like didn't exist and completely shift the way that society is. And since the 70s, you don't really see any of these technologies. Like even the Apple iPhone, people would say 0 to 1 is not, because there was already smartphones before that. They just like took it and made it better.
They mastered it. Yeah.
And so a lot of people are
That's a good point.
Yeah, people are just taking these technologies and they're just trying to make them better instead of create something brand new that can change society.
Yeah, 100%. And I, like Elon said, I wish there was more people going after that. I try to do that with a different, with film. I always try to innovate and do something fresh. And that's another thing. Like when I screenwrite, I do have a lot of ideas, but I don't write any idea unless I believe it's original or that I can make it original. So I do wish that more people thought that way, no matter what they're doing. You can be a businessman, you can be a podcaster. I believe you're trying to do that with your podcast. Yeah. I respect what you're doing. Appreciate it. I wish there was more. I just think it's not necessarily like I'm disappointed in anyone. I don't judge anybody. I just kind of always hope for the best in humanity and hope that we progress. And I'm actually one of those people that kind of see the silver lining in all this COVID stuff, and actually I believe that the new normal will be better than what we had. I don't 100%. Necessarily think that what we were doing was necessarily quote unquote normal. I don't look at it that way. I don't think what we were doing was benefiting anyone anywhere. We weren't treating our planet correctly. We weren't treating ourselves correctly. Mental health was at its worst. I don't know, man. I think this is right now. People finally have time with their families. Times that they thought they didn't have. Well, you didn't have that time before to go home and maybe spend a little bit of time. Of course you did. You just made the excuse of the bubble of the illusion that you had to do something. You don't have to. You could have spent time with your family. I hope this changes things. I hope it changes things for the better, where people can understand they can sometimes work from home and spend a little bit more time with their daughter or son or wife or just anyone, nephew, niece. That's, currently I'm quarantined with my family. And I'm happy. Yeah, times are hard. Yeah, things are confusing, but I'm pretty hopeful for the future and the new normal. I hope that, we learn from this and that we just become more empathetic towards each other, obviously more kind to each other, but also just spend more time on things that are important outside of just, the physical needs and materials and currency and greed. I think we all understand that, this brought us all down to the same level. Even Donald Trump is on the same plane as us right now. We're all at ground zero. So hopefully we can all grow together rather than it be this catastrophically different world like we were living in before, where the top people who make money in the world are 1% of the world's population. Yep. Hopefully this changes things.
Yep. The top is tipped over. And as we were saying in the very beginning, you have to rebuild support and you have to have faith in in yourself to build this new platform, technology, business, whatever the case is, and surround yourself. And I've preached as many times that this is going to be the best rebuilding opportunity that anybody will get in a long time.
100%.
All you have is to just focus on you. And I don't take anything away from people who just want to relax and people who maybe suffer from high anxiety, depression. I understand that. But for people who have the hustle mentality or they just want to make a change, this is your opportunity to go out there and do it. Because
100%. And if, like me and you, we're young. I think for me and you, this is arguably the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Dude,
I know that's weird to say, but it's like I said, it brought everybody to ground zero. We're all on an even playing field now. Has that happened to any other generation before us? No. I know that it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying that there aren't people there suffering, and that of course I feel very sympathetic towards people who are suffering in this time, and I hope that ends soon. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of growth here. And especially if you're young like us, we can really take this time and go, what is going to be our new normal? I don't want it to be what it was. I don't want us to revert.
Very well said. Are there any specific changes that you've been making, or any different maybe industries that you're moving into or assisting with over this time?
Yeah. I've made big changes. I've made big choices since COVID started. Before COVID started, I had picked up shop and moved to LA, and I was living in El Segundo in a really nice area, and I was super happy. And I was making strides in the film industry and doing my thing. Like I said, I'd started that UCLA class, and I, was working on that production. So I had no intention of coming back to Vegas. But then COVID came, and, I started quarantining here in Vegas with my family. And then as the days went on, I was trying to think, what is it I really want to do now that things have changed? And, first I had to accept that things had changed, that, I can go back to LA, but LA might not open until August, and that my production might not start there for a long time. And, that was pretty much what my focus was over there. I was like, what can I do with my time now that will benefit me? So as of right now, I'm pretty much in Vegas indefinitely. I'm currently in the office that I work in. It's a family business, IQ Technologies Inc., and I'm very dedicated to helping this business and helping it grow, and using modern techniques that we've learned, because we're still young, and the older generation might not understand certain things like e-commerce and social media. Use what I know to benefit this business. So as of right now, I'm indefinitely moving back to Vegas. So that's one of the big choices I've made. I mean, it was a hard choice, but, I do think it's the right choice. And I do think it's the right choice for me right now. LA is not going anywhere. My connections over there aren't going anywhere. The people I love and the people who respect me are still in my life. So it's just about making the choices you feel are right for you now, and to just not be so hard on yourself about it. It's okay. Like, the change is okay. Like I said, I was struggling. Everyone struggles with those decisions you have to make in this time, with everything changes and things changing and things being pretty indefinite and uncertain. I think the uncertainty is what scares everyone the most, at least me. I don't get too fearful about things, but the uncertainty was eating me up for a while. Once I let that go, like I said earlier in this podcast, once you kind of let it go and be like, let's talk about the things you are in control of, not the things you aren't. So I'm not in control of COVID and how it spreads. I can maybe be responsible, wear my mask, stay 6 feet away, practice social distancing, quarantine with my family. That I can do. But outside of that, I'm not in control of what the pandemic does to society. But I can control what the pandemic does to me, and how it affects my life, and how I can still stay productive and sane and happy. And I believe I've done that. And it hasn't been easy, but it's a daily thing. It's a daily struggle. But I'm proud of how far I've come since it started, and I'm proud of the changes I'm making. And I think I just encourage people to not be afraid of the changes that are coming, not be afraid of the choices they'll inevitably have to make due to the changes, to embrace those choices, to be proud of yourself for making choices, because it's hard to make the choice, right? You can be just stuck in limbo, smoke some weed at home, just chill and just say fuck it and not know when anything's going to change and just stay stuck. So it's hard to make that choice. So be proud of yourself for making any choice in this time, and be kind to yourself and others. And yeah, for right now, that's essentially the choices I've made. And I'm looking forward to continuing production with my film. And I'm looking forward to, obviously, at this point, I'm planning to continue production here in Vegas. And I'm also, like I said, I'm dedicated more so than I ever had been before COVID to my business and to keeping it growing and not letting it die, because a lot of small businesses and business owners are losing their businesses, and it's scary. I don't want this business to die. I want it to adapt to the times, and same goes with my filmmaking. Although I'm scared of certain things, like we were talking about the theater and all that stuff and straight to streaming, I want to be able to adapt. So that's pretty much what I've been doing in terms of choices.
Very well put. And everybody who's listening, pat yourself on the back, because we're all in this together, and everyone's
we're
doing
in this together.
And what
hugs and kisses to you all when this is all over. Group hugs in the showers. Did you ever see Longest Yard?
Yeah.
Group hugs in the showers tonight.
What?
One day we'll all have our group hugs at EBC.
One day, dude, that's my spot. That's my favorite spot. They take
Dude, I worked there for a little bit. I worked there for a summer. It was a blast, man. Yeah, it wasn't what I wanted to do for a living. It was just a fun time, but I loved it.
Oh, it's a great and amazing time. You can't hate on it. R.I.P.
No.
Day clubs and nightclubs, but we'll be back. We'll be
come back, Jake. I'll join you.
We'll be revitalized. 100%. What can you explain what your business is that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so IQ Technologies Inc. was founded roughly 12 to 15 years ago now. Like I said, I had moved here middle of sophomore year. At that time, all my dad did in terms of starting this business was he found what was called a TENS unit. If anyone is familiar with a TENS unit now, it's what people use at chiropractors' offices. It's those, electric muscle stimulating pads. They look like this, and you connect it to a unit, put it on you, and it clenches your muscles, and it helps with blood circulation, and it kind of eases any muscle aches and tensions and stuff like that. So that's where this started. And back then, a TENS unit looked like this huge mouse. Now our TENS units, somewhere around here in the office I can find one, but now our TENS units look something like this.
Yeah, for those who are listening, he's holding up. It looks like a little digital iPad.
This one's our Heat one, so this one's actually bigger than normal. Most of them look like small iPods, but this one would come with Heat. But
yeah, basically, it looks like a bigger iPod for those who are listening.
Yeah, and basically you connect pads to them, and it's good for your muscles and any aches and tensions you may be experiencing. So that's where this got started with TENS units. We were a drop shipper and a distributor of TENS products for many years. But as the years went on, we got more and more products in our catalog. We got a 6-pack, that was a thing for a while.
Like a 6-pack massager?
Yeah, those 6-pack massagers that help kind of tone your muscles. We got that. We got, those neck and shoulder neck and shoulder massagers. So like I said, every year adapting, every year finding new products. And thank God we've lasted up until now. More recently, which is kind of the side of things I'm a little bit more in control over, is our massage chairs. They're relatively new for us. I think we started kind of working with massage chairs, or at least trying it out, roughly 3 years ago. So still relatively new to that industry, and there's a lot of big hitters in that market, a lot of competition like Daiwa and Infinity. But I'm actually really proud of our chairs and how they look and how they function. And more recently, we just got a huge deal with another manufacturer that kind of produced these chairs that look like the Mercedes of like massage chairs. They have this beautiful spinning wheel thing. In the Mercedes cars, they have that spinning wheel.
Oh, in the center console area?
Yeah, the center console area. So it kind of has that to control your massage movements and things like that. There's AI voice control. So you can say, hey, that is Alice. Yeah. And so you're getting a massage. Your hands are, usually when you're in a massage chair, your hands are,
they're kind of elevated a little bit. Yeah.
Elevated, and they're in the arm massager part. So you don't really want to take your arm off of it to touch the remote. Like that's up until now what everyone was doing. And we even were adapting with the remotes, where we had a touchscreen remote with one of our models called the F1. So we always try to innovate with that. So more recently, we're doing the voice control function, which we're still trying to master. It's a little clunky at the moment. Once it's ready, we're definitely going to release it and have people try it. But basically, you'd sit in the chair and you'd go, hey, Alice, compact massage. And then it would change the massage mode to that. Or like, hey, Alice, move my chair up, move my chair down. There's roughly, as of right now, 17 commands you can tell your massage chair.
Sounds
without
like
having to move your hands.
Sounds like a utopian version of Elon Musk's fear of the AI takeover, but the massage chair version.
adapting to the future. People don't want to move. People don't want to move their arms.
Dude, and with
stay chill in their massage chair. If they want to change, they want to go, hey, move me. They don't want to move an inch. And I get it, man. You want to be relaxed. The whole point of these chairs are for your wellness and for your relaxation. So we are doing our best to adapt and innovate for people.
Yeah, exactly. With COVID, we don't know when in-person massages are coming back, or I'm sure it'll come back at some point, but person-to-person contact seems not preferable at this point in time in society.
Right. And also for many years, leading up until now, we were primarily a wholesaler. So the way wholesaling works, I'm sure you know, but for your viewers or listeners, you sell to people who own kiosks or storefronts primarily, and then they sell your product. So you don't sell directly to consumer as the company. You sell to store owners and kiosk owners, or people who run trade shows or convention shows. That was primarily our market. This obviously put that on pause. So for at least a solid month, there was no income. And we were all like, oh, like, what are we going to do? We can't let this continue. So everybody, got together and we were like, okay, obviously switching over to e-commerce, at least as much as we can. Obviously reaching out to our customers that already know us and telling them, we're here. We can still sell to you. We can give you coupons. We can help out. If something's not affordable, we even have payment plans for our chairs. So you don't have to spend, $1,000 out of your pocket at once. You can do a payment plan. So we're trying our best to adapt straight to a consumer market. Not saying we've completely eliminated the dealer, but it's pretty inevitable that storefronts and kiosks and things like that are pretty much indefinitely not going to be what they were. Amazon exploded, and not like they were already huge, but exploded after this. So we very much understand where things are going. So we're doing our best to adapt to that as well, and going more directly to consumer.
Yeah, B2C seems like the most profitable right now for businesses, because B2B is struggling because most of the businesses are probably not even open. So there's nobody to sell to if you're a B2B.
It's tough. And also in the past, we had a voucher or a letter a contract that people would have to sign saying that they can't sell our products online. So this obviously changed things. So whoever is still our dealer, we have to figure out a way to allow them to sell online without competing with each other too. So it's kind of made things a little bit complicated. We don't necessarily have an all-around idea of what we're going to do with the dealer market as of right now. But like you said, most of it's on pause anyway. So we do have time to think and recalculate that. But like I said, as of right now, I think our primary focus should be and will be direct to consumer.
Taking the rebranding opportunity and running with it. Absolutely running with it.
God bless us, man.
Much respect.
Life is a blessing, guys. Don't be afraid of what's happening.
Yep. Use it. Everyone has the willpower to make a change. I just tweeted it yesterday. It's one of the best times. Like I said, my industry of my work's not opening up probably till New Year's, is all the rumors. Trying to build out this platform for Vegas.
We can talk. We can talk about you. Look at what you've done.
We're running for it. I'm out here just trying to build a platform for Vegas to get people recognized.
How long did it take from when quarantine started to you opening this podcast? How many weeks?
It took about 2 weeks. I kind of had this like, I've been sitting on the idea for a really long time, for probably about 1.5 to 2 years. But I kind of had this do or die moment in the beginning of April, where I was like, if I'm ever going to start this podcast, it has to be now, especially in the middle of a pandemic. And I could get,
that's exactly the message that you should be giving people, that now. Just do it now. Don't be afraid. Do it now. Don't worry about failure. Don't worry about anything. Obviously, you have to worry about your finances and being able to afford food and rent and all that stuff. But I mean, whatever you wanted to do, just go try. Nothing's stopping you. This is your time. Everything's on pause. You know, there's no pressure.
My absolute favorite quote to live by is "Just do it." Nike. It's literally the most simple, and you're repping the hat just for it. Wearing the Nike.
Honestly, it's because like I haven't had a haircut. You know, I'm trying to hide my fluff right now. I haven't had a haircut since quarantine started.
Oh, dude, yeah, I was getting like that too. I had to go.
You had to go? How was it? Did you have to wear the...
I wore my face mask there, yeah. They were spread. It was like every other station was open.
It just reminded me, I do have KN95 masks here at our warehouse in the US. So if anybody are in need, we obviously are donating as well. But we've kind of set some aside for people who need them, like in my direct bubble of people, whether it's friends or family. So if you know anyone who needs masks, we have those as well.
Good man. An artist, a philanthropist, an innovator, and everything. This is Mike, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, hell yeah.
For the listeners, I always ask 2 questions before we go to you. My last episode, I actually forgot because we went 2.5 hours and I was exhausted, but I did remember. So the first question is, the year is 2030. What is the status of Michael Yosef Productions and IQ Massager? Like, what's your future outlook towards you?
All right, bear with me.
No, we got time. Yep, 10 years.
The year is 2030. We got 10 years from now.
I like asking this question because it kind of, some people don't even know what they want looking forward. And obviously there's so many obstacles that can happen, but to see the grand scheme of the people that I interview is something that I like to see, especially when I catch a lot of these people in the very beginning stages of their journey.
My ultimate goal with my filmmaking is to hopefully still be making. I don't want to stop. I don't want this to stop me. I don't want 10 years from now, I look back and I go, oh, because of COVID-19, I gave up on my passion. So please God, 10 years from now, I'm still doing it. I still want to do it. And hopefully there's still some theaters open so people can go see my movie in a theater the intended way. So that would be a huge goal of mine, and maybe even a feature film or multiple feature films by then, because that's the medium that inspired me. And that's the ultimate way I want to tell my stories, is through feature length storytelling. Although, like we said, I don't mind adapting to the short form either. So who's to say in 10 years, I've mastered that and there's this beautiful web series out that I've released and all of you guys love it, whether it's Cyborg or Dark Tales or whatever, and I'm still making that, or I'm still making other short form stories. So who's to say that's not the future? But like I said, I think in a dream world, I'd still want that to be a possibility, the theater experience. In terms of this business, I want it still surviving. I want it to be available for my family and the people it supports in my family and the community it supports. We give back every year. We give roughly 10% of our profits to either charity or Chabad's. So we definitely want to continue being not only a successful business for us, but for people, and to give them a wellness and relaxation experience that is hopefully unmatched. So let's say that is the ultimate goal for my business in 10 years.
I respect that. I like that. And the last question is always the most meaningful one. And it hits home, is what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Wow. Las Vegas is home. Las Vegas is home. I struggled with that for a long time. And I think I'm really happy to say that officially now, and to you, because I've never really said that publicly to anyone, including my family. So Las Vegas is home. My family's here, my business here. our opportunities are here. Opportunities are limitless here because the city grows astronomically every year. So as of right now, Vegas for me is home. Vegas for me is opportunity. And I just want to be able to continue to grow here and, go Golden Knights.
Vegas born, Vegas strong.
So yeah.
I like that.
God bless everyone. God bless everyone here, and God bless the people listening. And I just hope that you guys have taken some inspiration from this and follow your hearts, and don't be afraid to make a decision right now. It's okay. You can make a choice, and you can make a choice for yourself. It's not being selfish. It's being healthy.
Yeah. Very well put. Michael, where can the listeners or the viewers get in touch with you and reach out and get involved?
Yes, sir. So Michael Yosef Production is my Instagram. I have a Facebook under Michael Yosef Productions with an S. I have a website, michaelyosef.com. So it's all pretty easy to find. Just search my name. Search my name on anything, on Facebook, Instagram. Like I said, I'm on Vimeo, not YouTube. And I also have a website. So just search, honestly, the easiest way, my website, myname.com, michaelyosef.com. Anything you need will be there in regards to my filmmaking forever. That's always going to be the case. I'm keeping that domain. Nobody's going to take that. And then in terms of my business, I just personally more recently opened a Instagram for our massage chairs. It's IQ Skyline Massage Chair is our Instagram page. And we just had recently a giveaway of massage guns. So we do giveaways. We market our chairs on there. We do flash sales. So if you're interested in anything, not just our chairs, I'm going to be marketing our other products on there as well. I just kind of thought, let's start with the chair. Let's make that our focus. It's a quality product. So you can follow that page as well. We have a Facebook for that as well, IQ Skyline Facebook for that as well. And our website, basically our main website for all our products is www.iqmassager.com. You can find all our products there, whether it's TENS units, massage guns, or massage chairs.
That is amazing. You guys heard that. Free massage chairs. Check it out. The links will be in the show notes. So just click on it. Easy. And if you guys took anything away from this, watch Emunah. It's about 7 minutes long. It's incredible to watch.
7 minutes, easy.
Yeah, you will feel a great sense of pride, even if you aren't part of the Jewish culture. It's all about believing, guys. Like we said, the time is now. I thank all of you guys for listening. Michael, I thank you for this awesome conversation.
Thank you, Jake. You're really, at this point, I consider you a good friend. I wish you the best of luck with this podcast. Thank you for giving me a platform, and I appreciate everyone listening in.
Of course, brother. Hopefully next time we can do this, your episodes or Dark Tales will be done, and we can discuss everything about that.
That'll be awesome. Hey, if theaters get to open up, I'll, please God willing, get to be able to do a screening of it at Eclipse Theaters. So
I'll be
I
there.
guess be on the lookout for that. Please show up. I'd love to see you.
I'll be there. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next time.